The Grant Study of Adult Development, financed by W.T. Grant, the department store magnate, and run by Harvard's Health Services Department. The study proposed to investigate normal young men, whatever that might mean, at a time when most research was devoted to the abnormal. Dr. Arlie Bach, the first Grant Study director, was convinced that some people coped more successfully than others, and the study intended to search for the factors which led to intelligent living. The guinea pigs were drawn from consecutive freshman classes at Harvard, a total of 268 men. I was one of those guinea pigs, and we were presumed by our presence at Harvard to have shown some capacity to deal more or less ably with our careers to date. On that particular afternoon, I was a sophomore, just turned 19, a sophomore who had only recently been laid for the first time, sort of. The Depression and a 6-month siege of polio had been the sole departures from an otherwise contented, if not stimulating, life. The Grant Study's social worker later described a classic young wasp whose family income was $10,000 a year, $5,000 from my father's salary, $5,000 from my mother's dress shop, and whose college expenses were paid for by a New York lawyer grandfather. She described my father as industrious, hard-working, interested in nature, trees, birds, antiques, sports, and civic things. My mother was listed as ambitious and industrious, musical and artistic, which she would have liked, and as rather of the flighty and artistic type, very charming and young in her ideas at 44, almost immature. That last would have enraged her. As a family, the Bradlees had been around for close to 300 years, but well down the totem pole from the Lowells and the Cabots. Proper enough as proper Bostonians went, but not that rich and not that smart. Grandparents were well off, if not rich. Nice Boston house, not on Beacon Hill, not even on the sunny side of Beacon Street overlooking the Charles River, but on Beacon Street still. One car, no boats, but a cook and a maid and a stream of governesses before the Depression, when overnight we were alone, cleaning our own rooms, cooking our own meals, fetching our own firewood, like real people. But there was always the promise of some dough at the end of a family rainbow, as soon as the requisite number of relatives passed on to their rewards. Before the Wright people died, my father kept the books of a Canadian molybdenum mine for a few bucks. He kept the books of various city and country clubs for family memberships. He supervised the janitorial force at the Boston Museum of Fine Arts for $3,000 a year. And all through the Depression, we lived rent-free, weekends and summers, in a big Victorian house owned by the estate of some distant relatives in the woods of Beverly, Massachusetts. Rent-free, provided we kept up the grounds and barns, which my father did with a passion, and with me when I was around. I have nothing but wonderful memories of Beverly, learning a love of the outdoors that has never left me, cutting down each giant beech tree that died in the blight of that time on the opposite end of a 2-man saw with my father and his friends. Burning brush for hours on end, still a uniquely calming and rewarding experience for me half a century later. Climbing trees, collecting butterflies, growing vegetables, playing doctor with my sister's friends. Years later, the Grant Study doctors noted that their guinea pig was 5 foot 11 and a half inches tall and weighed 173 pounds, with warm hands, cold feet, without eyeglasses, freckles, or acne. Blood pressure was 112/84, pulse was 81, respiration 22, hair dark brown, eyes brown-green. And he had 3 tattoos. For reasons that now escape me, before my sophomore year, I'd had my initials, B over C over B, tattooed on my right buttock, with a snake coiled through the initials, and I'd had a rooster tattooed just under my left shoulder. One of the psychologists described her guinea pig as a very good-looking boy, well-mannered and cultured. He walked into the office with the confident manner of one who knows how to deal with people. She was especially impressed with how this quite normal, well-adjusted boy had adapted to months of leg splints and crutches during his bout with what was then called infantile paralysis.